That sounded weird.
All right, it's going down. Just give it a minute.
The Third Degree Net Podcast. Third Degree. The Third Degree Net Podcast. Third Degree. The Third Degree Net Podcast. Third Degree. The Third Degree Net Podcast.
Third Degree, the podcast, is brought to you by Soccer 90. MLS First Kick Sale continues through Friday the 16th with $15 hats and tees and all other gear. Don't forget, Third Degree listeners receive 25% off with promo code Third Degree at checkout at soccer90.com. Well, hello there, FC Dallas Curious fan. Welcome to Third Degree, the podcast. I'm Peter, and with me first is Dan Crook.
Hello, Peter.
Hello, Dan.
How are you today?
I am good. And, of course, editor and founder, your hero and mine, of thirddegree.net, the good Buzz Carrick. Come in, Buzz.
Hello, Peter, calling in today from the FC Dallas practice facility because once they let me in, I refuse to leave, ever.
Man, you posted that video of yourself out at practice today, and you look like a 5-year-old child on Christmas Day who knew he was getting a bike for Christmas.
Yeah, it's funny. Even when I record, that was the second version because I couldn't even get my brain to come together with an actual sentence to say. I mean, if you watch it, you can tell I was I had no idea what to say. I was so thrown off overwhelmed by being there. It was nice. I mean, look, thank you to FC Dallas for actually figuring out a way to let people, a certain amount of media, go. And the setup is terrific. You have to be over on the sideline. That's fine. That's where we used to be anyway. They have a little section roped off that's the correct distance from the field, but it's inside the fence. So it's fantastic. It's just exactly like it always was. And you get to watch everything you used to always watch. So super excited, and thank them again for letting me do it. So they didn't have to, and it was nice that they are.
Well, we are on the precipice of another MLS season, this one actually. Now, this is where I think this gets confusing because earlier today, FC Dallas sent out a tweet celebrating the fact that it was 25 years ago today that the Dallas Burn played its first game in the Cotton Bowl against San Jose, and I thought to myself, wait a second, how can that be? Because I was told the 25th anniversary of the league was last season.
Yeah, was it not?
Well, remember they did this a couple of years ago with the 50 years of soccer, and it was well, it's not actually the 50th anniversary, it's the 50th year. Kind of like that. Great, you just turned 30. That means we're into your 31st year. It's all, just... Why not just wait it out to the right time and celebrate things appropriately?
Then that leads me to this question. Shouldn't MLS, and this isn't a Dallas-specific thing, shouldn't MLS have collected all of the things, the plans, the ideas, the content, the merchandise, everything that they had created to celebrate the 25th anniversary of MLS last year, in the year 2020, because that season got bonked due to COVID? Shouldn't they have just essentially just packed it all up and done it this year, since it actually is the 25th anniversary this year?
Well, it wasn't. I think technically it's the 26th season, though. The last season was the 25th season. That's the stupidity of your anniversary versus your birthday, and versus it can be annoying.
So confusing.
Yeah. I mean, this is the 26th season of soccer, and it's the 24th season of Third Degree. I know that. So count it however you like.
Right, exactly. But today is an important day, at least specifically for Buzz and I. Dan, I don't think you were in Dallas in 1996, were you? Were you even alive in 1996?
Yeah, I was turning 10 years old.
All right, screw you. Buzz, this is a big day for you and I, because this was the day that we actually saw the Dallas Burn in the flesh for the very first time, and that's important to me, and I believe it probably is to you too.
Yeah, it's a big deal. I watched it on television, of course, because I lived in New England at the time. But
I was living in New York City.
Yeah, but I definitely remember for sure that the beginning of the thing. I was actually working for the Revolution in '96 and '97, but even then I knew that Dallas was my hometown team and the team that I was going to cheer for. So, for me, the start of this franchise is obviously a very big deal, considering that a lot of my life is now built around it. So it's pretty exciting.
Yeah, I forgot, Buzz. It's so ironic that two, I think, day one Dallas Burn fans didn't actually live in Dallas at the time. You were in New England. I was in New York. And while neither one of us were actually there at that very first game, I think you're like me. I ended up seeing Dallas play in that first year, not only in the Cotton Bowl over the course of the season. I also saw them play multiple times at Arrowhead Stadium with Kansas City, up at Mile High in Denver. I saw them play in the Meadowlands in New York. And I'm sure there was at least one or two other places in that first season. And those were some of the best times I could possibly remember. So happy anniversary, Buzz.
Yeah, thank you, sir. My remembrance of them coming to Foxborough and Leonel Alvarez and Hugo Sanchez getting into it with the crowd. And at one point, Leonel Alvarez pulls up the shorts on the leg of Hugo a little bit and gestures to it and then gestures to the crowd because Hugo had these blood trails down his leg from where he got cleated on the thigh in that game. And they were both gesturing to the crowd. Those guys were happy and relishing the moment, and the fans all booed him and they all were happy that they got booed. And the one opening day story I'll never forget is that Drew Moore was at the opening day Dallas Burn game when he was like 12, which is always a fun story.
And then he went on to become a Burn player. Was he actually? No, he was a FC Dallas player. He was never in a Burn jersey, was he?
Yeah, not specifically a Burn jersey, an FC Dallas jersey, but it was still, if we'd have had homegrowns, he would have been in one.
Yeah,
he was, he first came out to training, I think. I don't remember specifically seeing him in high school, but I think it was the summer after his high school year before he was even in college. I remember him coming out and training. He and Hugo Emalu were the other ones that I remember seeing as high schoolers basically come out and train.
Well, I'm sure there are pod listeners who are frustrated that Buzz and I are traveling down old man path and memory lane and want to get to the practice stuff. But before we get to practice stuff, there is other business. It listed here in the run sheet, the podcast agenda, booze tasting.
Oh, yeah. Oh,
so I guess there's some booze to be tasted, which seems very out of place for a soccer podcast. Or maybe it's not.
But it's in crayon, so it's important.
Yeah.
That's right. That's true.
Well, we have this reward for our Patreons who support at a certain level of a Discord server. And in there one day we got into a discussion about whiskey and booze. And I had mentioned that I liked really smoky scotches in particular. And we got into the talk of different flavored scotches. And somebody mentioned that they had had a bacon whiskey. And I thought, wow, that's something I got to try. So one of our biggest supporters and followers, Trent Dismuke, sent us a bottle of this bacon whiskey. So Dan and I have some to try, and we're going to basically try it live. We have not tried it. I have no idea what it's going to taste like, so we're going to try it, and we're going to see what it tastes like.
Can we just preface this by saying that Buzz, earlier today on the way back from practice, pulled up in front of my office and handed me a mason jar full of a warm, golden liquid.
Buzz is
with a very pungent
jarring his urine.
Yeah.
Clearly, Buzz isn't hydrating very well because it's so golden yellow.
Yeah, well, it was hot today at training. So anyway, Dan, you
have
want to
those
go first?
I mean, yeah, why not?
Give it a try.
All right. While you guys are tasting it, I do have a question. If this is bacon related, are there like little bits of bacon in the bottom, like a worm in the tequila?
No, it's called Old Major Bacon Flavored Bourbon Whiskey. Baconed and bottled by Tennessee, or in Tennessee, it says.
All right. Well, I don't drink, so you guys are the ones doing this.
Yeah. Go ahead, Dan.
Are we doing it together, or are we doing it separately?
No, you try it.
Drink the liquid.
Oh, it smells like piss now. Okay, here goes nothing.
This is an elaborate prank to get Dan to drink Buzz's urine.
Yeah. Dan, you can say something while I'm trying it.
Wow, you are a massive alcoholic if that's your urine. It's this. I didn't taste bacon at all. I'm kind of disappointed. It just tastes like a pretty smooth bourbon.
No, I'm getting some bacon flavor for sure. It's very smooth, caramelly, whiskey, bourbony. So it's like honey glazed, hamish kind of bacon vibe going on. Wow, that's actually really good. Hold on a second. I'll be back in a few minutes. I'm going to drink a little more of this.
All right. So
If
here's
you've
how the
had
rest of
any
this
of the-
pod's going to go, listeners. I'm going to be doing a lot of talking, and Dan and Buzz are going to be babbling like drunken idiots in the background.
Hey, this isn't the first pod I've been drinking whiskey for.
I'm already
really
going
good.
to suggest that by the end of this, when we get to predictions, they're both going to suggest Dallas is winning MLS
Okay.
Cup and the Supporters Shield.
Just going to drop some water in to open it up a little bit.
And Jesus.
That is actually Trent Dismuke. Thank you, sir. That is outstanding. I'm going to enjoy drinking this bottle. Wow. I'm going to have a little bit more. Hold on. All right, Peter, let's go on with the show.
I am so looking forward to Drunk Buzz podcast.
Yeah, edit this. It'll be fun.
No editing. We want all of it in here. All of it in there. Okay, before we get to training today, we did have a final preseason game against the hated Houston Dynamo down in Houston, and Dallas rolled out the 3-4-3 again, took off one Edwin Cerrillo and inserted one Bresson. Buzz, how are you feeling about that performance?
Well, Houston's not very good, but
No, they're not. In fact, wait, hold on. Before we go on, who's actually better, Austin or Houston?
Austin. Yeah.
Well, that says a lot, because I remember sitting in the stands last Saturday going, oh, my God, Austin is terrible.
Well, here's the thing about preseason. Sometimes coaches do stuff to limit themselves. Like Austin, for example, started what we thought was basically their second team, right? And so we watched Austin outpossess Dallas, and then we watched Dallas go down and thoroughly Lucci ball Houston. Well, it's entirely possible, and we don't know, that Lucci said to the team against Austin, I want you to sit deep and practice low block and counter. And so they spent the whole day doing that. So we don't really know that for sure. But sometimes preseason games have to be thrown out because of that. But there is a big takeaway from Houston, and that's that we saw the return of what I consider to be Lucci ball, which is the more possession, a little bit of the high press, which Houston didn't deal well with. But the biggest takeaway is the 3-4-3, because you're looking at what is basically the final tune-up for the spring, right? For the first start of the season, the first game. And Lucci rolls out a 3-4-3. We've seen it used more this spring. So it's likely that we're going to see it more this year than we have in the past. There was even a thing on the press conference today that Dan was on for, where Dan Hunt mentioned specifically that Lucci had all this time to actually work on other formations because they had a real preseason. So that's the big takeaway, is that, and we'll come back to when we talk about the Rapids playing again, is basically that all the positions have been won or lost in preseason except for one fulcrum point. And that's, are you 3-4-3 with Bresson as your third center back, or are you 4-3-3 with Edwin Cerrillo as your sixth? That's basically the only thing left being determined. And it's right now looks like it's, at least for opening day, probably 3-4-3.
All right. But it seems very odd to me that for a team that really struggled creating opportunities last year, to take an attacking player or at least a midfield player off and replace it with an extra center back seems counterintuitive to improving this team's chance creation rate.
Well, maybe, but you remember how often last year we talked about how important the outside backs were in a Lucci system. If you go 3-4-3, those outside backs become all of a sudden more like outside mids, and they're further up the field and therefore offering theoretically more in the attack. So while I'm with you in terms of losing a player out of the middle, the player you lost out of the middle is a 20-year-old kid, and so maybe there's something to be said for it being more offensive to be in this shape. I mean, the front's going to be the same, basically. It's really only just the back that changes.
It's worth pointing out the differences are kind of minuscule, really. When they play in a back three, Bresson's kind of the spare guy that plays effectively as a six when the ball's going forward. When they play a back four, the six tends to compress in between the centre backs. So, really it's just the individual skill set of the player than more so than their role.
Yeah, this one of the things Lucci talks about with the three-man back line is narrowing the gaps between the center backs. When you're playing a team like this, when you have a center back like this, an extra one of your center backs is free to go at any midfielder that's coming forward, as opposed to when you have a six, when that guy is trailing that guy or tracking that guy. If your midfielders, perhaps Acosta and Ricarte, are a little bit slow to track, perhaps, this gives you an extra guy to attack at a six coming or a midfielder coming at you. So Lucci likes to talk a lot about responsibilities and roles more than like strict tactical formations because of the fluidity of what he's doing. So it's not crazy different to go 3-4-3 versus 4-3-3 in terms of the way Lucci does it. So that mainly the big difference is the extra center back versus the six. That's like a 15-yard difference in position, so it's not incredibly different.
So my next question would be: is the decision to move to a 3-4-3 in part because they sold Santos, or did they sell Santos because they knew they could move to the 3-4-3?
Oh, wow. That's a good question. It might be a little bit of both. Lucci likes to use this formation in particular when he's going up against what he considers to be like a two-striker system or particularly fast strikers, because of that space compression. When you play two strikers and you go three center backs, you have an extra center back to help double and all that kind of stuff. So there's no sweeper in this thing, but it definitely raises the question, like if you were going to do this, would Santos have been on the field? If you're going to have this formation in half the time, it's like, and someone here comes $1 million for a guy that might be sitting half the games. Certainly a contributing factor, I'd have to say.
Dan, do you think there's any chance that this actually is a structure designed to help them defensively because they've moved Ryan over on the right where he's clearly still not as comfortable as he is on the left, and they've got Johnny on the left who is a good defensive player but maybe still trying to figure out going forward?
Yeah, I think maybe it's just a little bit of recognizing that you're going up against a team who have a strong midfield. Especially, you've got Yunus Namli as an attacking midfielder. You leave the last thing you kind of want is Edwin Cerrillo kind of chasing back after him. If you can put an extra defender in front of him, and then as well, you've potentially got if Johnny Nelson does start at left back, you've got him coming up against Michael Barrios, who has played against him in training God knows how many times and probably knows a trick or two to getting around him. So again, just kind of reinforcing that back line can just kind of help things and give you a little more option even when playing out from the back.
Yeah, my only comment is it does seem a bit surprising to me that they would want to throw in a third center back when they they brought in such a noted improvement in a center back with Martinez. But I'm sure it'll all sorted out as the season goes on. Also from the Dynamo game, Buzz, you were super excited and very enthusiastic by the performance of one Franco Jara.
Oh, yeah. Yeah. I don't think it changed my opinion in the big picture. But like I always say about what we do is we try and, call it like it is, not to use a cliche, but, that was, for me, probably Hara's best game in an FC Dallas uniform. Now, do I want it to be way, way better than that? Absolutely. But it was interesting that he got hit by Parker a couple of times early, pretty hard, without fouling. And then Parker got in his face and jawed at him a little bit. And it was almost like that woke Franco Jara up. I mean, one of the biggest complaints last year for me was sort of engagement. That like he wasn't really motivated. He was kind of half-assing it all the time and not really engaged with his team necessarily all the time. But after that, he was. And you saw one of the most engaged, most energetic, most dialed-in performances we've seen from Franco all season. It's only been a season he's been here. Scored a goal, and even if he hadn't scored, did things that you need him to do. And it's like, all you got to do is play like that. We're not asking you to be a 40-goal scorer and carrying this team. All you got to do is be a solid contributing player that's dialed in and giving a crap and doing your responsibilities and your roles and playing with some fever. And that's going to be enough. And he did that. So I gave him credit on that performance. I thought it was his best in a Dallas uniform, frankly.
We also saw some other really nice performances from Ricarte and two of the other new additions in Vargas and even O'Brien.
Yeah, it was funny that since the last two games, which were actually on video, MLS has decided that Freddie Vargas is the new hotness with this team because they keep putting him in all this social stuff and talking about what a big impact he's going to have. Listen, the big question mark coming into the spring was across the front line. And for the final tune-up against, again, not a great team, but for the final tune-up to have Franco Jara have a great game, O'Brien have a great game, and Vargas have a great game, that's where a lot of the questions were with his team coming into the spring. So it was a positive day. It's not everything, but it was a positive day.
All right, so they finish up the preseason winning this new Copa El Copalita?
Copalito, yeah.
Copalito. So
La Copita.
La Copita. Thank you.
Man, yeah.
Leave it to the English guy to teach us some Spanish. So we've got a little piece of silverware to go in the trophy cabinet, so good for that. Then today, as we talked about earlier, Buzz went to training, put a big smile on his face, and before we knew it, that we got a frown. It all got turned upside down, as they say, because we got a piece of bad news today.
Well, I noticed that Jesus wasn't there, so I started asking people, and I found out that he hurt his shoulder the day before, and that was really all I had at the time. And then credit to Dan, because Dan got on the media call, the Lucci and the Dan Hunt media call, and Dan asked Lucci what the deal was, other than the fact that he hurt his shoulder. And Dan, why don't you tell everybody what he said?
Yeah, he said, he kind of prefaced it by saying he hadn't spoken to the athletic trainer just yet, but that Jesus had sustained some ligament damage to his shoulder the previous day in training, and that he would be shelved for, what they're saying at the moment is 3 to 5 weeks. Lucci carried on to say he was really heartbroken after really all the work that Jesus has put in preseason between the national team, the under-23s, and scoring in the last 2 games. Might make Hara breathe a little easier, but you know how Lucci can be sometimes, where if he's really kind of emotive about something, he's not quite as wordy. There's one of those situations where he was kind of just straight to the point, and there was a bit of distress in his face.
I hope that's not an omen for the rest of the season.
Yeah, that would be, losing Jesus would be rough. It is a spot where there's 2 other guys, Hara and Pepe, so it's not the end of the world, but I would feel terrible for Jesus, who's had a great couple of camps with the national team and the Olympic team.
So can we count that as a double Huntsman dump, or just one with additional information?
I think it's just one big one.
Okay. Yeah. A massive dump.
It's a team dump.
Well, so what else did you notice at practice today that you would love to share with the good pod listener?
Well, would it be okay with you if we talk about Paxton?
Yes, of course.
Yeah. So let's go with the good news first, is he looks much better than sort of any weird glimpses I've seen on video. He's still only, to my eye, about 90%, and that's the negative, really. He for sure has put on upper body muscle. Whether he hit the weights or whether he just filled out because he's maturing, it's hard to tell, but there's definitely some upper body strength going on there to hold people off himself. That's really good. What's missing to my eye, listen, 90% Paxton is still pretty good because he still outworks and out-hustles pretty much everybody else. He has the Bobby Ryan in him that way. The downsides right now is that a little bit of that super quick 10-yard burst that he has that makes him so special, a little bit of that is missing, and that's just going to be, recovery and getting back. That's not something I'm not particularly worried about yet. Now, if 6 months from now it's still like this, then it's a problem. But the burst is there. It's just not quite what it was, because I can tell when he's playing, he's not quite reaching out for the ball as much as he would. You know what I mean? He's like holding back a tiny little bit in terms of like stretching for the ball or really trying to crush it with his burst. I can tell he's being careful. Now, this is just my opinion. No one said this. I'm just my watching. So I'm really, really positive about what I saw in the sense of where he was 6 months ago, the surgery that he had, and what I was expecting to see. I'm actually really pleased that I saw a player at like 90%. So, and he played both right wing and as an 8 today, which I think was as much about availability because he wasn't in the starting group at all. He was with the, pretending to be the other team group. So overall, a really positive viewing, in my opinion, of Paxton. So I'm pleased by that.
Other observations from the practice session? Any other player? Because this is really the first time, other than going to the Austin game, this is the first time you've seen a whole host of these guys, Martinez, Obrian, Vargas, in person.
Yeah, couple injuries. Thomas Roberts was back out doing ball movement and kicking balls and jumping back and forth, so that was good. Tuamasi was taking part in training completely. Again, a guy that looks like he's only like 85, 90%.
Did we ever determine what his injury is?
Well, I remember I told you abductor, and the way he moved today looks like a guy that's coming back from that. Lucci said something about his heart, and I haven't been able to follow up on that yet. We'll have time to figure that out before the guy can play because, like Paxton, he's limited. I know it's a worry, but it's like
adductors and heart issues are two very, very different things.
Well, watching him run today, I'm buying the abductor. I'm not saying that the heart thing's not. Maybe Lucci, maybe he didn't say that, and I totally misunderstood him. But I played it back like 3 times, and I swear he said heart. So one of these days I'll actually be able to be on talk to Lucci more than me and 15 people, and then we'll ask him about it. But Tuamasi played right back today, and he and Paxton were having a lot of fun and clapping hands and giving high fives to each other because they're both good ball players. So they were having a lot of fun together. I'm still really excited about the idea of Tuamasi as a right back. Benny Redzik was out there, the new homegrown signing. He was working way harder than I've ever seen him work before. So good on him to realize the situation.
Has that happened since we've had a podcast?
Yeah, it was like a week ago. Just to get into it really quickly, I was surprised that they signed him because I didn't think he quite had it for MLS. Not because he's not talented. He has always had talent, but he never has had like the mind and the focus and the drive that I thought, oh yeah, that dude's going to make it. I always was like, it's kind of just, he always coasted in the academy. Well, today that ain't the academy. And I could tell he knew because he was busting his butt all over the place. So credit to him for that.
How much do you think, Buzz, the signing of Benny Redzik is a business decision because Benny has citizenship over in Europe versus him actually being somebody they think can help the senior team?
Well, it's very possible that it was a business thing because while the Bosnian passport is not EU, it definitely is options. And that kid's talked about Europe his whole life. I actually thought he had no interest in being with Dallas, assuming he's graduating in May. So I think that's a distinct possibility. That's what it is. But at the same time, they've been signing a whole bunch of wingers because they had no idea what they had. He actually played mostly as a 9 today, which is, again, Jesus was out. So they needed a body to some extent. But, the guy's he's a very hot and cold player. When he's hot, he's great. But it's like he has all these cold spells. So, he's one of these guys that could be, I mean, who knows which way it's going to go? I really don't have any idea. It's going to be on him.
Yeah, no, I agree because I remember the very first time I saw him was with North Texas, and I saw him on one of his hot days, and I was like, wow, who is this guy? He's great. There's a lot of promise. And then I saw him a couple of games later where he had a cold game, and I thought, okay, whatever. Yeah. And so when I was like you, when they signed him, I thought there's got to be more to this. And this is where I think we all, as fans of this club, have to remember the number one primary goal is the business of selling players and making a profit off of players. That is, without question, the number one thing that's going on here. So the signing players and using up their HG slots in many ways may be tied to that first and not really about adding people that can really help the roster, specifically because he does have that passport and probably is a little easier to sell, even if it's for a little bit of profit, than a whole host of other guys they would have on the roster.
Yeah, he's been a Bosnian U18 and a U.S. Youth International. I mean, so there's definitely skill there. Now, there's a lot of younger guys that have had tryouts and things they thought had lined up get wrecked by COVID. Mm-hmm. So there's probably also something here, even potentially with Benny and or his agent or whatever, that they're like, look, we'll take a minimum homegrown deal and you can pay us for another year and a half or whatever till we get through this mess. And then you can sell me and get something, right? And that way you can pay me for a little bit and then I can go when I can go. So it's possible there's just sort of, because he is talented. He's one of the better talents that's come out since Tanner, basically. He's the best talent that's available out of the academy. That's ready. There's some guys further down that are amazing, but they're not, they're not 18. They're 15
And they don't have a passport.
They don't have a passport. Well, some
right.
of them do. But,
and it's also possible that he's just one of those kind of gray area kids who is good enough to possibly play somewhere over in Europe, but doesn't have the connection. So it's kind of a scratch each other's back. Hey, you guys sign me for a small homegrown deal. I'll let you make money off of me, but I also need to use you as a conduit to getting to Europe in the first place.
Yeah, 100%. And since Zanata has come in, there's a whole level of business kind of stuff. I mean, look at Philippe, the keeper, right? I mean, that guy to me is 100% like can we buy him? Will you get enough interest playing for Brazil that we can buy him real quick and flip him? I mean, he also looks pretty solid in training and in the games or whatever, but there's a level of business happening with Zanata that wasn't here before.
Yeah.
So,
I mean, is there any chance you see Benny even get any minutes for the MLS team this year?
Well, today he looked better than Dante Seeley did. So, with Paxton still being out, and the rookie that they've signed out of college who's got some interesting things, the thing about Benny is that if you're looking for a guy to come off the bench and steal a goal and steal a game, other than Pepe, and now Jesus is hurt, I don't know that he might not be the best thing you got going, actually.
Interesting.
Okay. I mean, he scored the other day on one of the scrimmages. Granted, it was like after the main scrimmage, but, if you're talking about 10 minutes and I need a goal, man, he might be, Offense is tough sometimes in this league, and particularly with FC Dallas these days. So I do have a couple more things from the training, though, that I think I should talk about. One of the things that concerns me a little bit about the shifting new formation is that they have not played in this shape very much. And now you're talking about 3 center backs and you're trying to build out. And none of these center backs is like a dribbler. They all are okay. They're all pretty good. Hedges is really good as a passer. And watching Jose Martinez today, he hits a really nice pass. Lots of weight on it. Like, it's not like he just sort of fluffs it forward. No, he drives it forward when he's passing it forward. So you got to be ready to trap it, as you should as a pro. But he's not going to like dribble through 3 guys. So Bressan, same kind of thing, right? Bressan's not going to dribble a couple of guys. So that's, to me, a little bit of a worry early will be watching that build out. Jesus Martinez is a phenomenal player. I was watching him today. He was working a lot with Johnny Nelson about how to read where Martinez is. Am I going forward or am I going back? And for Nelson to react off of that. So like working on getting the timing together down. It was just really interesting to watch a guy who's a veteran talk to a guy who's pretty young still about that, how to read him with his body language even. So that was kind of cool. And then up front, the one that really, both Vargas again today looked great. And Obrian is even faster in person when you're down like close. It's even quicker than I thought from sitting way up in the stand. So, that speed's going to could be pretty devastating. So that's pretty much everything from practice. It was really good.
All right, so Colorado starts off the season up in Frisco on Saturday at 7 p.m. Buzz, you've been kind of hyped about the Rapids. They've been a kind of a dark horse favorite across many people's predictions, and they've got some interesting players. And then also just not to forget that both Kellen Acosta and Michael Barrios are returning to their original MLS homes. So are you thinking that they will play in this 3-4-3 formation?
Yeah,
Dallas?
I do. I think the Rapids coach is really good for one thing, but that has nothing to do with why it's a 3-4-3. But I do think it's a 3-4-3. It's the people you'd expect based on the final game. Bressan, Hedges, Martinez, Nelson left, Ryan on the right, Ricarte and Acosta in the middle, Obrian, Darth Jader, I prefer, Frank O'Hara, and Freddie Vargas on the left. That's pretty much locked in stone. The only way it would change would be if Lucci changes his mind and goes back to 4-3-3 with Cerrillo. But he doesn't do that very often. Lucci will decide formations and tactics later in the week than almost any coach that I can remember here. But he doesn't do that very often. He will do it, but he doesn't do it very often. Usually by the time Wednesday rolls around, whatever you're seeing is the 11's the 11. So that'll be your shape. I think I'm okay with it. I on the road against this team, I think it actually works out pretty well. And it's not on the road, is it? It's here.
No,
I
it's
just
here.
brain
Buzz.
farted that. My bad.
No, you're full of booze.
No, I was just thinking of, I don't know why I thought it was on the road. I just was thinking it was on the road.
Being full of booze, Dan, you're being awfully quiet over there.
I dominated. That's my fault.
Well, in that case, I can always drop a quick bomb or a tiny dump, whatever you want to call it. Szabolcs Schön, the winger that was signed last week, the Ajax product from Hungary. Initially, we expected him to arrive in July at the end of his contract. Dan Hunt and Luchi Gonzalez confirmed that he will be here in the next couple of weeks and available for selection right away.
Wow, so they got him in this window. That's fantastic.
They did.
I wonder how that played out.
His club must have just decided to let him go, I guess.
Yeah.
What do we know about the guy?
Left wing.
Dan was really proud to say that Chelsea wanted him. He
Jesus.
he played one game for the second team at Ajax. He won the under-19s league with Ajax, did all the Youth Champions League, all that fun stuff. He went back to Hungary. He's kind of been the guy, one of the top scorers in the league, and looks like one of those kind of get relatively cheap. He's 20 years old, and stash him away for a couple of years and sell him off.
Yeah,
They give him the number 11, by the way.
It does feel like for the one position that has ailed this club for forever, it feels like they have really overcompensated at left wing now, because I swear I'm up to like the count of 8 players that potentially could be playing left wing for this team at this point.
I mean,
Am I wrong?
Lucian's versatility, he loves that stuff, right? I mean, you got Vargas and you got Khalil Almancur, you got Paxton Pomykal, you got Jesus Ferreira, you got
4,
Ricardo Pepe, you got
5,
Ematu Omasi,
6,
Thomas Roberts could do it,
7,
Sean coming in, the new guy can do it.
8.
Who am I missing? Oh, Dante Seeley does it.
9.
O'Brien does it in a flip-flop in the middle of the game. I think that's 10.
What about Mr. Benny?
Oh, yeah, Benny. Yeah, that's his number one position, 11.
Yeah.
So you got 11 guys that can play. Oh, Ryan Holly said 12.
Right. But, okay, we're being ridiculous at that point. But out of that 12, there are at least, 4, if not 5 guys where it's almost like a primary position for them in this roster?
Yeah, certainly Sean, Benny, Khalil, Vargas are basically left wingers. And I think Paxton was until that was the plan. Sometimes I wonder if all these signings are because they're now panicking about Paxton. I think that may be not quite the case, but
I think there might be an element of international dates. Like, Vargas was never a guy that was in the Venezuelan national team picture, but he's had a couple of good games, and now people are talking him up, and they are convinced that he's going to be kind of a mainstay very shortly, which you've got Copa America coming up as well. You've got, quite a few international dates where they could lose him. So maybe that, incentivizes them to hurry up someone like Schön or get Elmed Carr or somebody like that MLS ready.
Yeah. I do wonder how much of this we're going to find out over time, and this gets back to the Benny story, is how much of this are guys that they signed because they believe they are profit opportunities versus how much they actually intend to use them as, hey, we're trying to win something, additions to the roster.
they'll never say in advance. We'll only know by what happens with them.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Because like the Sure guy and even the Vargas and the O'Brien, like these foreign guys the foreign internationals that's stupid to say, the international guys that they bring in, you always wonder how, what the point is. And if they're young and they're really good and suddenly they start to produce, if they get the opportunity to turn around and sell them at a profit. Now, Santos isn't maybe the exact perfect example considering his age. It just does make you wonder how quickly they'll start churning these guys in and out of the roster as we go through the next season or 3 or 4 or 5.
Well, Dallas sells themselves as a stepping stone, not just to domestics, but also to international players. Like they use Mauro Diaz as an example. They're willing to move you on if you hit the next level.
It's funny you mentioned, Dan was talking about the business of soccer a little bit, how, he and Clark have never taken a dollar out. It's all reinvestment. And one of the things he did say that kind of wasn't just kind of the blah, 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 but kind of did strike me a little bit was that they've had a lot of a much better reaction to South American and Central American players towards North Texas SC based purely on the players that get to go on training camps and things with Bayern Munich, and players that Bayern have turned around to FC Dallas and said, "Hey, we do think X, Y, and Z could potentially project to play in the Bayern first team at some point."
Wow.
It just really continues to foster and improve the theory that FC Dallas is a weird entity in the scheme of things in relation to any other Major League Soccer team. And Buzz, you and I have talked about this a lot, which is unlike every other club in this league, the senior team, the MLS team, is actually the marketing tool to really support the larger business at hand, which is the youth structure underneath it. Like, it's like, come play for us because we are a path to your pro career. And by the way, we just happen to also have this senior MLS team on top, included in this thing. Does that make you understand what I'm saying?
Oh yeah, totally. No, Lucci from day one has said this is a developmental club. Even this year in the spring, in the preseason before like camp started, he said specifically, no, what he called a selling team, the selling club has never won MLS Cup. He said, why not us? Why can't we be the selling team that wins it? Well, the reason is because you don't have the top end difference makers. But I applaud his mentality and his desire, and they're trying their damnedest to bring in, the way they always do, young Americans and young foreign players and develop them enough where the talent's going to come together and they're going to try and make a run. Barrios in a lot of ways was that guy. He came in young and he developed and became a great player. Mauro Diaz came in young, developed a little bit, and they sold him. So it's not always the same path, but this is what they do. They find youngish players, both foreign and domestic, and they try and develop them to either sell them or help them get better and win games.
Well, they certainly did that with Grazo. I think they tried to do that with Coleman. Unfortunately, Coleman just couldn't score a goal to save his life. And I'm sure we could, if we had thought about this prior to starting recording, we could have come up with an entire list of those international guys that they brought in that either turned out. Now, the Santos deal, that's a guy who's older and certainly wasn't young, but they clearly made a little bit of money off the guy.
Yeah, I mean, you could look at Obrian, too, at 25 and being a late bloomer. He might be looking at this as like a chance to get seen. And Ricarte, who's been an MVP type player in his league, but has never made the leap for some reason, maybe he saw this as a way to showcase himself on TV. European teams are looking at MLS these days. It's a high-profile league in a lot of ways if you're trying to make the next step anyway. So Dallas is trying to take advantage of that. Now, listen, we would all love for them to take advantage of what things the way other people do. But 25 years in, Peter, we know that that's not going to happen here. We know this is what we have. So we embrace it and we watch it and we try and cover it as best we can, top to bottom, academy and signings and everything. So, in some ways it's a lot of fun to try and figure out how these kids are going to develop. It gives me something to talk about, certainly.
Dan, anything else from the final media call before the start of the season with Lucci and Mr. Hunt that you listened to today that you'd like to share with the good pod listener?
No. A lot of it was kind of looking back. It's funny you mentioned what happens to the 25th anniversary stuff. Does it shift another year? Because our very own Nico Mendes asked exactly that.
Oh, did he? And what was the answer?
It was kind of, circle talk.
In other words, they don't really know.
Well, I mean, obviously they know on the business side of things, they held back the Mitchell and Ness throwback gear a year, and now that's been released. But yeah, I guess I just kind of... one thing, actually, Dan Hunt did make a point of giving our mutual friend and former team GM, Andy Swift, a shout-out to say that, the league-owned years were rough, and that Andy and his team were really the only reason it survived to that point.
Oh, nice.
Well, that's nice to hear that. That's
yeah.
But I want to know what created that response. Like, what was the question or the context behind it?
Sorry, I'm kind of Notice Andy Reid. Okay. So it was actually to Nico's question. He said, they're going to go back and revisit some things this year. Big thing that they do at the Chiefs is recognize the alumni, but they're not entirely sure how they're going to bring people in and do that with COVID restrictions and everything. And so the first person he kind of mentioned was, the league. It's kind of difficult as well. I think he meant because records and stuff. That Dallas and San Jose was league owned in those first few years, and then he kind of said, there's so many people that didn't get the credit they deserve, and then he specifically mentioned Andy.
Yeah, I do sometimes get a sense that there is a significant percentage of the current fan base that have no idea or would never, and I don't blame them for not knowing this, about the history of the club dating back to the original days and the fact that it didn't have an owner. Like the Dallas Burn wasn't owned.
Andy to write a book.
Yeah, Andy's got amazing stories. He's told some of them on the show. But the fact that, Dallas was the redheaded stepchild of the league and is something I think largely gets forgotten. And the fact that they were as successful as they were in selling tickets to the Cotton Bowl and all of that, I don't think has ever truly been documented or noted or appreciated as much as it should be.
Yeah, between Andy and anybody, Bobby Hammond would be a good one too to recognize his contributions early.
Well, Billy Hicks, right?
Billy
Hicks, the original GM, and Billy was amazing. First off, for those who don't know who Billy Hicks is, Billy Hicks has a stunning career. He was part of the original NFL Europe League. He was the general manager of the London team. He was part of launching Major League Soccer, and then he left Dallas to go become part of the XFL.
Yeah, I remember when Dallas got him, what a great hire that was at the time. I remember thinking that was a huge hire. It's a shame that they couldn't keep him, but, he was a perfect guy to get this league and steam off the ground in Dallas, I thought, at the time. Listen, we've been talking about inviting back alums to this team, Peter, you and I, for 10, 15 years, that they should do that, And it's just another example of what they talk about. This for 3 years now, they've been telling me that the Texas Soccer Walk of Fame is going to come inside, and they got, 3 years ago, they told me they bought all the plaques for it, and 3 years later, they're still sitting in a closet somewhere.
You mean stickers?
Yeah. Maybe there's stickers.
Inside joke.
It got run over in the Hall of Fame stuff, because they didn't want to seem like they were taking a shot at the Hall of Fame or whatever. But it's like, look, you have a history beyond, of your own. Let's not neglect that. They need to get that taken care of. But hopefully they will someday. That'd be nice.
There's people listening to the pod who got the sticker joke, and I just want credit for that.
Yeah. That's good. That's a quality
they're
joke.
the season ticket holders.
Yeah.
Right. Exactly. Billy also worked for the Dallas Cowboys when Jerry Jones bought the team. He was also an employee then during that transformation, and has some awesome stories about Jerry Jones back in the day. Yeah, it's great stuff. So we need to spend more time talking about the original Dallas Burn stuff. Okay, I guess we're now at that point of Buzz's crayon handwritten run sheet. We are at season predictions, are we not, Mr. Buzz?
Yeah, that sounds good to me. Go ahead.
All right, so you have 3 things you want us to predict. Place of finish for Dallas, Dallas's leading scorer, and who will be MLS champ. Now, I'm assuming that you mean who will win MLS Cup.
Yeah, that's what I mean.
Okay,
yeah.
All right, good.
We can debate Supporters Shield versus MLS Cup some other day, but MLS champ is MLS Cup.
Yes, I agree with you.
Yeah.
Okay. So let's do place of finish for FC Dallas first. Dan, would you like to tell everybody where you think they'll end up?
Okay, so we obviously have a bit of an offensive rebuild, and my belief is if it all pans out successfully, you're looking at 4th or 5th. If it fails miserably, you're looking at potentially out the playoffs. So I'm going to go somewhere between that 4th and 6th and say 4th and 8th, and I've given away my answer and say 6th.
That was an interesting peek inside of Dan Crook's brain.
It's the bourbon, I swear.
So we should also point out that we do know that the MLS playoffs will be the top 7 from each conference. First place gets a bye, and they'll play from there. But other than that, we don't really know the structure of the playoffs. They have not yet determined that, which is the most MLS thing ever. They'll start a season without deciding. And obviously it's because they think they want to be prepared for any kind of fallout from a wave of COVID washing over the country once again. So we just know it's the top 7. So I'm going to say that I think this is another season like all the others pretty much, and I think they'll probably end up somewhere just on the positive side of the playoff line, somewhere in 6th or 7th.
All right, that leaves me. At the beginning of camp, I was with you on 6th and 7th. I have revised that slightly to go in 5th place. And the reason it's 5th place is because in a league like Major League Soccer, if you hold steady, you will go backwards in the standings. So if you've done something to make yourself better, you can make a little bit of a step forward. So for me, that's seeing Vargas pay off. We think O'Brien pay off. We think Hara, I'm not convinced, but I've seen enough out of Pepe and or Jesus till he got hurt that I think the front line is fine. So I'm sticking with 5th. I think they're a little bit better than last year and finish 5th.
Okay. The next item is leading scorer for the club. Buzz, who do you think? I'll go first. I'll go first this one. I think the leading scorer, and I'm just pulling this one straight out of my butt, will be Mr. Vargas.
Ooh, that's a good shout. That's a good shout. I'm sticking with what originally was a crazy prediction. When Dan and I did our crazy predictions, I'm sticking with my crazy prediction that Ricardo Pepi will lead this team in scoring because I'm expecting Franco Hara to flame out and Jesus will be gone on call-ups or hurt. And then Pepi will end up being your leading scorer with something like 8 or 9 goals.
Well, you certainly your prediction, and you made that prediction a few weeks ago, actually gained a lot of ground based on Jesus's injury. And if he's out for 5 or more weeks, Pepe's going to have plenty of opportunities to bag goals.
Yeah, Pepe's XG is the same or even slightly better than Hara's XG, and Pepe gets hardly any minutes. So if you gave, if you gave Hara's minutes to Pepe, Pepe would score crap tons of goals because it's not. I didn't say that correctly. His XG is actually way better than Hara's. He just doesn't get the minutes. So it's, I think that he'll get enough minutes that he'll be ahead of Hara, even though Hara's going to get the PKs. I think Pepe will outdo him.
All right.
Dan.
Obvious answer is Jimmy Mauer. No, I think it's going to be pretty close. Goals shared around the team a little bit, so no, if anyone gets to 10, that's going to kind of be a miracle. But I'm going to go with Hara just for the penalties.
Okay. Now, Buzz, you didn't include this in the list, but I think it's an important one to do. Who do you think's going? I'm actually going to add 2 here. Who do you think the MVP of the team will be this year, Buzz?
Wow, I wasn't ready for that question.
That's why I surprised you with it.
Yeah. I'm going to go with Ricarte as MVP in the middle. Okay. I think if he stays healthy, that he'll get enough assists and be the key player in the middle.
Dan?
I'm going to actually agree and say not so much him figuring out the team as much as the team figuring out how to play with him. And, maybe we get some production like we saw towards the end of preseason.
I'm going to go with the utility tool, Mr. Hollingshead.
You can't call him a tool. How dare you?
I mean that as a compliment. I just have this weird feeling that Ryan, whether he ends up playing on the right or the left, just will continue to plow through minutes and provide consistently positive results for the team. And I think he will be the MVP of the season for some weird reason. The other one that I want to know is, and I don't know if the best way to label this category, breakout player, surprise player. I don't want it to make it sound like it has to be a kid, but who's the one player on the team, maybe not the most valuable player, but the one player that's going to give us the most pleasant or the most disturbing surprise, one way or the other?
can I pick Freddie Vargas, or is that already cat out of the
No,
bag?
you can totally pick Vargas.
Yeah, I'm sticking with Freddie Vargas. He is not blistering fast, but he has plenty of fast when you combine it with the skill set he brings and his aggressive mentality and his desire to go at people. All that adds up to chaos maker. He's like Paxton in the sense that he puts defenses under stress. And so I think that's going to be a huge, I almost considered him for MVP actually. And I loved your shout out that he might be the leading scorer, because I think that guy's going to wreak havoc over the first part of the season until people figure him out. As long as he doesn't get broken in half by everybody fouling the tar out of him, which is happening already.
I'm going to go with the new center back Martinez, but I'm going to say it this way. I think we are going to get to a certain part of the season and have to take note of how little we talk about him, because he's just so solid at what he does. If that makes any sense?
Yeah, it does.
That's going to be my pick for that. Dan, you got one?
Mr. Jonathan Nelson. I'm going to say, it's all going to, I think it's going to start to click a little more going forward as, he's been progressing with Ryan out on the right. I think he's probably going to, excel a little bit there with a good run in the team.
Was it you that wrote the article about him today?
It was, yes.
Anything? I haven't had a chance to read it yet. Was there any particular part of that? Did you get to talk to him personally, or?
So it was actually from a couple of weeks ago. I did a media call, and I was the only person on it. So it was basically just a one-on-one with Johnny Nelson, and then another one with Brisson. But we talked a little bit about his positional flexibility, and how he kind of laid it out with Lucci of saying, I can play right back, I can play defensive midfield, I can play centre back in a back three, but I want to be the starting left back. That's what I want. And so far, he's kind of doing that. Yeah,
man. More Johnny Nelson in my FC Dallas. I'm all for that. I love watching the kid grow and improve in his game and figure out things that maybe he didn't do so well the game before. And he's been lots of fun to watch, because you can clearly see he is a player that figures things out and improves from game to game. Now, he may still make mistakes, but that's part of the process, right? But that, in many ways, is part of the enjoyment of watching him as part of the team.
Absolutely. I mean, I feel like it's, some people want to watch Cristiano or Leo Messi, where it's just absolute perfection game to game. I want to see the player that progresses from game to game, that learns, that takes a step forward, or maybe takes two forward and one back, and you can actually see the wheels turning.
Yeah. Do we have any sense? So we don't know if Dallas is even participating in the Open Cup this year, do we? So we don't even know if we could predict them to make a run in the Open Cup, right?
Yeah, the MLS is going to determine who's in the Open Cup by the early game. I can't remember how many it is. It's like whoever, after a certain number of weeks, it's like whoever's in the top points. So we'll see. Dallas will make a push for that, though. I guarantee you. They're going to try and start hot because they're going to want to be in it. You know how they are about the cup.
Okay. So the other thing that happened today was that the team chose to put out
Peter,
what?
You skipped the last prediction.
Oh, the last prediction. Maybe because I was the one I didn't want to talk about. All right. Because it's the one thing, the only thing that this guy wants in life more than anything else is to see his team raise the MLS Cup. Who's going to win MLS Cup? And I'll start this one. I am going to go with everybody else's prediction and say the Crew. And here's the deal: the Crew are going to do it because they're opening up that new kick-ass stadium, and I think they're gonna. I think they'll do it this year again. I think they'll be back-to-back champs.
Dan, go ahead.
LAFC with a healthy Vela.
Okay.
I should have gone first. I was also going to pick LAFC.
Interesting. Okay.
Yeah, I think this is the year that they.
How about we re-pick with an injured Carlos Vela?
Oh, then it's definitely not picking them.
It's funny. I typically would not pick a team that is playing in a new stadium because I'm a big believer in the new stadium jinx.
It's very real.
It is. It's a very real thing. But for some reason, the Crew I just think are really good. But it is interesting. Am I right in saying there are 3 new stadiums this season? There's Cincinnati, there's Columbus, and Austin.
Yeah.
And if we haven't even talked about the video that Cincinnati put out of that kick-ass looking place. Have you seen that?
Oh,
Yeah,
actually, go on the Imagine thing, the media site. There is a promo all about the stadiums, like as they've been built through from '96. It is amazing.
Oh, okay. Oh, all the MLS stadiums.
It's only like a 2-minute thing, just talking about like '96 to now, but it's very cool, kind of seeing the progression and the way they kind of talk about it a little bit.
Well, it's interesting to me because Austin's media team is so good at producing videos and kind of building anticipation, and their ability to kind of build narratives about their team, and all of this noise they're making about that stadium that they've built in North Austin. By the way, my favorite is that people are calling them North Austin FC. Because the stadium is in North Austin. Yeah. They've made this stadium to be out as like some sort of state-of-the-art wonder building, but then you see the video of what Cincinnati's about to open up, and it makes Austin look like a shoebox, and then you see the Columbus Stadium, and you're like, holy cow, we've got some really fine establishments being built in this league, and the Austin one, for as nice as the people of Austin think it is nowhere even anywhere near in the class of these 2 other buildings.
The Austin Stadium kind of looks like if an EFL League One team opened up what for their budget is state of the art. You'd be like, okay, that's nice, it's tidy. Cincinnati, that's like Premier League, Bundesliga, Serie A. That's world class.
But are you aware of the video I'm talking about? There's one entire side of the Cincinnati Stadium which is essentially a giant video board.
Oh yeah.
It's awesome. It's really great.
It looks like Bayern Stadium, I thought.
Well, except Bayern can't do that. They just have like little panels that light up.
Right. No, but I meant stylistically, like with the big white sort of thing around. I know they don't have it's not quite the video board, but stylistically it looks like that, I thought.
And then, did you see the video from Louisville of their women's team playing their NWSL game and the amazing game day experience that they've built into that really nice new stadium, which is a very nice stadium unto its own right, by the way, with all the LED lighting and how they, flicker all the purple lights and stuff? Have you seen that video?
No, I'll have to look for it.
Oh, dude, that's awesome. That is a game day experience of a high order.
They got great kits too, that Louis City team, women's team.
They hired the Wolf guy to produce all that stuff, and they've got 2 kits that are really, really nice. Yes.
Did you happen to see that the Rochester Rhinos, now that they've gone, they've been replaced by Flower City Union, whose crest and colors are just basically Racing Louisville.
Oh, they stole it.
Bummer.
But in NISA.
Yeah, the Racing Louisville branding that they hired that guy to do is really good. And he's also the guy that they've hired. What's Wolf's first name? Matthew? Matt Wolf, I think his name is.
So, yeah. Chicago hired him, right?
Chicago has hired him. Yeah. And Chicago, for all of the fumbling they've done with that rebranding, they have gotten their crap together, and they've been very communicative and transparent about this process the 3rd time around. But they've got the right guy doing it. He is the tops of the heap when it comes to soccer branding, and the stuff he did for Louisville, their women's team is really, really good. The kits are fantastic.
I think the important part with Chicago is that they've actually set a guideline. They've said they want the Florian Cross, they want the C, they want the 6-pointed stars and the city flag. Because if you look at some of his other stuff where he doesn't get that direction, it's kind of boring.
Well, and credit to him, what you think is boring, I think is classic, right?
Yeah, maybe.
Yeah. No, I know what Dan means, though, because a lot of people that are really creative talk about limiting themselves. I mean, Jack White, for example, talks about the 3-color thing and like that trying all their songs are written with like a certain number of chords or something, because like constraining himself forces himself to get creative. And so a lot of times if you get your most creative stuff when you do have some level of constraint on yourself.
Well, I think we'll keep an eye on how all of that plays out. I just, and I'm very interested to go to a game in Austin. I want to see what the stadium looks like. I just don't think it's as kick-ass as they think it is.
Well, of course we need to go to a game there, yeah.
Yeah.
Just think, it will take you quicker to get to it than it would to get from there to downtown Austin.
That's true.
It's because of the traffic, yeah.
For sure. Okay. Any other predictions you want to just make up on the fly? Like here, anybody want to come up with a crazy story that they think will happen during the season? Like a prediction of something that you would just out of the blue?
How about the first coach to get fired? You guys want to predict that?
That's got to be like the Vancouver coach or the Montreal. Like they just hired a new coach, didn't they?
Yeah, Stam's a good one.
The Cincinnati. Man,
there's so much hype with that Brenner guy, but they've still got a crap team.
Yeah, they spent a lot of money on that kid, didn't they?
I think there's a chance that he might quit. Would be Altameda, San Jose.
Yeah, he'll get an offer to go play. I mean, he gets offers from Mexico pretty much on the regular. So
yeah, I mean, he turned down one other one. That's what I mean. It's like I think he'll realize that he doesn't have the support there to sign the players he really wants, and so he'll take a job. That's not the same as getting fired, of course, but it won't shock me if he just was like, it's so bad, he's like, screw it, I'm out, and takes whatever offer he gets.
And how long will Phil Neville last?
A season, at least.
Yeah, probably the season. I got to tell you, the team that I'm really trying to keep an eye on that I can't quite figure out because he's finally getting a proper number 9 is our buddy Oscar in Orlando. You know, they were a pretty solid team last year. DK, I think, is not I mean, it's pretty safe to say he's not coming back, but they've got Pato, the Brazilian guy, who's now 31. If they can get anything out of him, there's a lot of talent on that team. And with Oscar, as well as we know him, man, they could be a dangerous side.
Yeah, with the price of was it $20 million on DK?
Well, I think they turned down a $10 million, and I think now with the rate that kid's scoring over in the championship, it continues to go up.
Yeah, if they can keep him, I think they have a shot at the Cup too. Might be the best team in the East.
Yeah,
that's a big if, though.
Has he scored on Luton Town yet, Dan?
Yeah, 2 the other day.
Oh, bastard!
Yeah,
not happy.
Yep.
I'm not happy about that.
I have one more thing I wanted to say, Peter, just because people have asked me a little bit about it, because I went to practice today. A couple people have asked me.
And you're a little drunk?
No. I'm not a little drunk. I only have like 2 sips of this stuff.
Okay.
People ask me about practice observations. And the answer is I'm not going to do it. And the reason is because standing and watching practice and then writing up some notes on it was only 1/3 of what was in practice observations. The other 2/3 was little bits of information that I would get from Lucci when the microphone was turned off. And then it was a couple of quotes from Lucci. So like, that section of like not just me watching, but the little section of news and the little section of quotes are both currently not allowed or currently can't happen. So it's only 1/3 of the thing. I'm not going to do it until they let us have media time with Lucci at training, and then I'll bring all that other stuff back and start doing it again.
Okay.
I just wanted to talk about it because a couple people asked if that was it.
No, I mean that's a beloved feature that you were cranking out week after week, and it
since
sucks
'99.
You still can't continue to do it. But with things getting have clearly improved here in Texas, and are getting better.
Yeah.
I think it's more than likely that it will be more back to normal than not sooner than later, right?
I got my shot. I'm good.
Did you get the J&J?
I did get the JJ, yeah.
JJ, all right.
Yeah,
Are you shot up? Are you shot up, Dan?
Yep. I couldn't do the podcast last week because of it.
Oh, that's why you weren't around last week.
Or the week before, whenever it was.
Whenever it was. Okay.
Oh.
Because we were going to do the Wednesday, and then we ended up having to move it. But, all this just leads to richer discussion about practice in the pod. So, silver linings.
Yes.
And
do we want
those awesome third-degree burns.
Yeah, those are good too. Patreon.com/third degree.
All right. Any off-field stuff that we want to talk about? Any stuff in preparation for game number 1?
I mean, the only thing really was the fake sellout was really the only thing.
Oh, yeah, that's what I was getting ready to talk about, was the press release that the club decided needed to promote the fact that they had sold out a limited seated game. So is it 50% of the stadium?
Yep.
Yeah.
So it's 10,000.
I mean, is it? I mean, last year COVID limitation was 5, and then they made it 3. So is it 10K or is it 3?
I don't know.
It should be 10K since they're talking about 50% of the capacity rather than like a hard limitation like they had last time.
And am I also to understand that the safe standing area will not be open yet because they're not to that point of the season in terms of how that's going to work out?
No, they've actually sold it out between people who renewed from when they had seats there and supporter group members. We've kind of known for a couple of weeks, but one cool thing was the Dallas Beer Guardians announced the name for the new section, which will be the Rhine.
That's a great name, by the way.
Yeah. Yeah, that's good.
Obviously,
I'm not
in
choked up at
tribute
all.
of Bobby Rhine.
Yeah, actually, I asked Dan Hunt about it, and he just he kind of went
didn't
completely. No, I don't think he did, but he went off on a tangent about walking past the picture of Papi's last goal with Bobby Rhine holding him with the cast in the air and everything, and Bobby's smile and some little anecdotes. So something that was kind of cool, even if he didn't talk too much about the actual stand itself.
And Buzz, because I've asked this question 1,000 times, so they're just going to leave this empty stadium stage with nothing on it. You're saying you've heard that they're going to do something. They're going to put Toyota trucks on it?
Well, no, that was actually Dan that said
That was me.
Oh, Dan. Sorry.
Yeah, they're going to put Toyotas on it and let them get dinged up by flying balls.
It's a showroom. Now we're selling
Well, I mean,
cars.
if it's a smart use of an empty space to advertise. It might be a little bit of a sore point for fans that wanted to stay at the North End, but it beats the inflatables that used to be there, right?
Well, I got an idea. I just came up with a kick-ass idea. When goals are scored, the cars and trucks that are up on the stage should flash their lights and beep their horns.
That'd be pretty cool, actually.
There's
And
an
fire
intern
off their
gig.
car alarms.
Yeah, there's an intern
Can you
gig
imagine?
for you.
Yeah, can you imagine being the intern that has to sit in the car and they're like, don't turn on the air conditioning. We must use as little gas as
It's
possible.
100 degrees out. You got to sit in the car.
Oh, they're all LED lighting and computer controlled
Yeah.
these days. You can do that with some sort of app now, I'm sure,
Yeah,
if you
push a
wanted to do
button.
it.
Yeah,
Just push a button and get them fired up and make them make all kinds of noise.
That would be a pretty cool suggestion. You should go ahead and...
I'm full of kick-ass ideas, Dan. You know this. Let's see what else we want to
right.
talk. Anything else, Buzz?
No, that's a lot, dude.
That is a lot. Well, I hope you guys enjoyed your bacon-flavored whiskey.
Oh, did I?
Pretty good.
Yeah. Trent Dismuke, thanks, my dude. That was awesome.
Yeah, that was
Yep.
solid.
Yep, very good. And
Would recommend.
Yeah, all right. Well, Dan, thank you for your time today.
Thank you, Peter.
Buzz, thank you for your time.
Oh, thank you, sir, for hosting.
Don't forget, Third Degree, the podcast, is brought to you by Soccer 90. MLS First Kick Sale continues through Friday, which is the 16th, and there you can find $15 hats and T-shirts. All the other gear, don't forget, Third Degree listeners get 25% off with the promo code Third Degree at checkout over at soccer90.com. Thank you, FC Dallas Curious fans. We will speak to you next week after Game 1 in the pocket at Third Degree, the podcast.
Whiskey Wednesday.
Third Degree, the Third Degree Net Podcast. Third Degree, the Third Degree Net Podcast. Third Degree, the Third Degree Net Podcast. Third Degree, the Third Degree Net Podcast.